Why didn't you come to me first? I always considered you a great guy and friend. I may be going out on a limb, Birch, but if I did something to offend you, I apologize. Hope I'm not barking up the wrong tree. So, what?
Anytime you do anything unconventional, you're putting yourself out there.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matthew Hines for Encounters USA. We are your one-stop podcast and YouTube channel for all things alien, Bigfoot, and Dogman. So relax, kick up your feet, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the show. Everybody, and welcome to a very, very special Encounters USA. This is going to be a very special podcast for a number of reasons. The first reason, I have to thank all of my listeners and viewers listeners on the podcast and viewers on YouTube. We have hit almost 1,000 subscribers. And for a lot of people saying, oh, wow, 1,000 subscribers, that's not really a big deal. Well, considering the fact that I have to take time off from this podcast to do other things, other projects, I really appreciate the fact that people have been loyal I think this is going on our third year. And I cannot thank enough my guests that have been kind enough to take time out of their busy schedules and come on this little Encounters USA podcast to talk about aliens, Bigfoot, and Dogmen. So that is one of our big milestones today. And another big milestone today for our Encounters USA podcast is our guest. And our guest, who I'm going to bring on in just a minute, is fantastic and outstanding in a number of ways. But I want to say this before we get started with her interview, and that is that Encounters USA looks into phenomenon and things that people don't accept as reality. Most people don't accept as reality. And the reason they don't accept them as reality is because the government and the media that controls the government that controls the media say they don't exist. So we talk about things that the government says does not exist. So what we have to do is look at every single angle, every piece of evidence, every claim, everything that everybody says, and decide, is this credible or is it not credible? Now, today's guest is in that realm of having the possibility of revealing some amazing information. But in order for her to reveal information, you have to decide, first of all, if that information is credible or not. And and we're going to go over some pretty fun stuff in a second, but I've had resistance from not the alien people, not the MUFON people, but the Bigfoot people that say, oh, how can she possibly have any association with aliens or Bigfoot? And this is all hogwash, et cetera, based upon her methods. So I just want to tell everybody now, if you have comments, you are welcome to leave them in the description. If you are an experiencer of any kind, there are some exceptions that I have, but you are welcome on Encounters USA, and you're welcome to tell people your story, and people are welcome to accept it or not accept it. So with that, I'm very excited to bring out our guest. Our guest is Oracle Oriah. Mirza Oriah, welcome to Encounters USA.
Thank you so much, Matthew. I love your intro. That was really great.
Well, thank you. It has to be said. And Oriah, we're going to be talking about your fantastic new book. We're going to be talking about your encounters, and we're going to be talking about aliens and Bigfoot and what you know about them. And it's going to be amazing. But before we do, I have to do this. It's going to be kind of a little bit of fun, but I've talked to Oriah previously, and we're going to kind of do a little role playing. And this is from some posts that I got off of Facebook. I posted Oriah's her thumbnail that, for the advertisement for the show, and I just want you to. I'm going to have these up on the side here, but I just want you to see some of the reaction that came from my post. That yes, I'm going to have this amazing Oriah, who's had an amazing alien experience. She claims to have had actual surgery. She has evidence, and she knows about Bigfoot. So all of this stuff, and look at some of the resistance she got. So we're gonna have a little fun. Oriah, do you have these? Do you have these little pictures up? Can you
Yeah, let
see
me pull it
picture
up.
one?
Okay. Yeah, let me pull it up. Okay,
So
picture one.
Oriah is going
Yes.
to Oriah is going to read the not Encounters USA response, and please don't read the dirty language.
Okay, so I'm going to read from the skeptic. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're going to start with picture one. There's Bruce.
Yes. So he says, sorry, but I think I want to miss this one. Happy face.
And
then he says, will Red Eagle be there too? Trance channeling from the Palladian Oracle. No woo here. Yeah, right. And that's a thumbnail of me interviewing my husband, who is a professional trance channel for the last decade in front of thousands of people around the world. But anyway, that's really funny. And then you have your response.
And my response is no Red Eagle, no channeling, just Oracle Oriah, aliens, Bigfoot in Alaska, and your favorite podcast host, Matthew Hines.
Next response. It says right there, trance channeling, laugh out loud, and who the hell is Red Eagle? Another new age plastic shaman.
Plastic shaman. We'll have to go into
I haven't
that,
heard that one before. That's a new one.
Okay, let's go over to picture two.
Okay. From Zucker Queen. Is it just me, or has our group just recently been hacked by woo posts? Question mark.
And Encounters USA replies, no woo on Encounters USA. We look at all angles for evidence of truth. No BS, just investigations, researchers, authors, and fun.
And then somebody named Steven says, laugh out loud in all caps, total woo. And then somebody named John says, this is woo, no ifs or buts. But if you don't know this, you're in the wrong group.
Okay, so woo has to be, I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but woo has to do with saying that Bigfoot
I'm familiar with the term.
What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you say that Bigfoot's not an ape or present some evidence, which you haven't even had a chance to present any evidence, and they're already condemning you, well, that's something to look at. So let's go to our last picture. And Mr. Kelly says,
okay, so he says, I thought it's a long strand, so I can't actually. I thought that we turned to Kip Moral for all of our Oracle needs. And then I guess it's like kind of a spoof picture of somebody inside of a portal. And then somebody says, named Bill says, I kind of figured it was supposed to be ironic. You know, the episode of Critical Thinking. Steven says, in other words, the guy is trolling. Then Jay says, you're
don't
such
read
a
that. Don't read the foul language.
You are a effing joke. Go away. Doing your show is the worst thing I ever done. Invent your own little group, critical and crazy woo thinking. You're a joke. Go hang out with the she scratchers and their remote viewing of Sasquatch. Jay says, forgive me for ever even doing this lame brain weirdo show. He likes to invite you in, then sink you. Real piece of shit.
Oh, can't read that language. I'm gonna have to change my PG rating. And then finally, and thank you for doing that, Oriah. Thank you for having a sense of humor. Jay, have you lost your marbles? This is Encounters USA, me speaking. Thank you. I loved having you on the show. I loved your encounters, and you did another show with Nice and Moorhead. I was planning to come down and go Bigfoot hunting with you at some point. This is the first time I ever heard of you having a problem with me. Why didn't you come to me first? I always considered you a great guy and friend. I may be going out on a limb, Birch, but if I did something to offend you, I apologize. Hope I'm not barking up the wrong tree. So,
Anytime you do anything unconventional, you're putting yourself out there all the time. You have to have guts to do this, front of the line kind of information that you present to people. And, the way I approach it is I've always been against the fray my entire life. It's nothing new there. And I've been bullied my whole life too. So it's nothing there. And most of the people that are speaking are people who they sound like bullies, but they're not. They're actually the ones that are being bullied. And this is how they respond. This is their protection. And I have 5, grown children. You're a teacher. So we're very familiar with how the bullying system works. So how I look at it is, since I am also a teacher, I educate. So I have information today that's educational. So basically, I'm going to show a different means and a different way that you can communicate multidimensionally. And you can also communicate in the physical reality and have the two combined. And if you think that that is not true, then explain to me how you dream, and explain to me phenomenons that happen all the time that are quote unquote not physical. So I have physical reality that has been constructed from a non-physical surgery. And the non-physical surgery was so extreme, and some people thought I was cloned, that I actually have become a different human being to my children, my family, my friends. And it's changed my life for the last 10 years, and it put me on a new track. So I have a lot of research that I've done in this area with a lot of experts and people who are very known in MUFON. And I've talked to directors of MUFON. I've been around this conversation, and everyone legitimized and said, absolutely, this is a very common story. What you're saying, this happens. It's just not as mainstream. And so this is more of an educational interview, I think. It's an experience. I'm going to share it, but I'm also going to have to upgrade some of the information that some people have.
Yeah. Hey, and speaking of upgrading, Oriah, let's talk, before we go any farther, I need to tell you that Oriah is the author of,
Alien Upgrades.
Sorry, I don't have my glasses. Alien Upgrades, New Dimensions in Alien Abductions.
Yes.
And so, so we're going to be talking about her book, and that's really going to be the focus of the podcast, because everything that she talks about in her book is going to be stuff that we're talking about here. But just going back to your, the way that people react to you, et cetera, et cetera. Just from my experience with doing Encounters USA, is that I put myself out there because I didn't look at one phenomenon, I looked at 3. And so what I really was not ready for was I expected a little bit of inner, phenomenon rivalry. But when you get into Bigfoot, they will sometimes these people tear themselves apart. And so anyway,
so Bigfoot is actually more classy than these people.
Well, I know that's going to get some comments. So, no, the thing is about Bigfoot, and it's just everything else, is when the government doesn't tell you the truth and you have to fill in the blanks, then it's open to everything. But when they talk about this woo thing, just so, I don't know if you know about the Bigfoot, phenomenon, the research, but anybody who says that Bigfoot has something to do with aliens or UFOs is woo. Anybody who says that Bigfoot is not an ape running around the woods and able to, escape being photographed, whatever, or detection or capture, etc., that's just an ape. And so anybody who says anything otherwise is woo. And in the defense of these people, Oriah, they're looking for hard evidence. I mean, there's been so many hoaxes, and everything that comes forward is always a blurry photograph. So, so anyway, that's the reality of the communities that I, work with. And so today we're going to be talking about Oriah's experience, not only with aliens, but with Bigfoots. But first of all, I want to explain who Oriah is and let her talk about Oriah, the person. First of all, I'm very proud to have a mother of 5 on my show. My mom raised 5 kids, so it's good to
Oh,
have somebody like my mom on the show. So I really am proud of that. So you want to talk about Oriah for a little bit, things that are important to you, and anything you just want to share with the audience right off?
yeah. I mean, my story is unusual, but what's common, what's mainstream about it, what's normal about my story is I was like everybody else prior to this experience. And that's why I have I have such a sense of humor about this area because I've been exposed to naysayers and skeptics and people who don't believe my story for so long now. It's been a decade that it's very, very funny to me. But the only reason why it's funny is because I came from that world. And I was a diehard Christian. I then got out of religion and then was completely agnostic. I just didn't believe in anything. I absolutely didn't feel anything was real outside of what's in front of me. And I was more in the corporate world, motivational type, business consulting, working with corporations, businesses. It was all just the exact opposite of anything woo-woo. I didn't know anything regarding quote unquote spirituality, esotericism, psychic, tarot, astrology. All of that was like another world. I heard of it here and there, but I never looked into it. I didn't know what it was. I only had gone to one hand tarot reader in Vegas one time for 15 minutes. I didn't even know what I was doing. That is the extent of my quote unquote spiritual or metaphysical experiences that I had up until the time I met my husband, and I was 37. So I literally spent my entire adult life not believing in anything that I couldn't see. So I 100% understand, agree, get it, have compassion. I don't know what else to say, how much I relate to the people who are upset or don't get the metaphysical world. What happened to me wasn't quote unquote asked for. Like I didn't call it in, ask for it, raise my hand, pick me. It just happened. And I went from being one person one day, and the very next day I was a different human being. And that is very personal. And to me, that is extreme evidence. Now, it does come from a firsthand point of view. So yeah, you're going to have to take my word for it. And what I've noticed in this storytelling of my encounter, and this is the beginning of me coming out. So I've had a few interviews and some feedback already, is many people at the end of it, and I told the whole story in its entirety on my YouTube channel, United Starseed Connections, and that's a fun name for everybody to get excited about. As I told my story, the feedback I would get is, wow, I didn't believe it at first, but after hearing the story, it's totally credible. This person is not lying. This person is telling the truth. And I think that's great that people can read through and understand my authenticity and where I'm coming from. But if you don't want to believe, you're not going to believe. If you want to believe there's only one way to do anything, then you're just going to believe that until you're ready to not believe that. I was like that. You can't force people out of their comfort zone if that's where they want to be. And, I welcome everyone. That's why I've, in less than 48 hours, I got booked on 9 podcasts to tell my story. It was like a whirlwind I didn't expect. I didn't even think anybody would even notice, but I guess with the disclosures coming out, of course, this is going to be a hot topic. And I have been studying this for a long time. So I do feel really ready to take it on, take the world on, whatever comments, however anybody wants to discuss things. And some people are very shy to come forward and say that they also had similar experiences and they're scared of people, throwing rocks at them. And welcome to our world, right? Welcome to our state of evolution. If that's where we're at, you have to have thick skin.
Yes, indeed. You have touched on a couple of things that I want to go back and talk about. The first thing is, I just want, okay, so all of the things that you're going to talk about today, your abductions, things that happened to you, these are available in the book.
Yes. After I finished recording an hour and 15 minutes of the entire story from beginning to end, I then had it transcribed and modified it a bit for easier reading, and I put it in a book form. It's in its last final stages. It'll be available to the public in a week, but you can pre-order it now. So if you would like to actually just read it and take your time, I put a lot of photos, before photos, after photos of myself, my family, some, little side notes and little things that, I've been working on, and just different topics I added towards the end of the book. But so it's just, it's just another encounter, and it's just a different, I'm not unusual. If you're very well versed in this topic, you'll see that I'm not an unusual story, but I am unusual in the sense that I did what I did with this information. Most people just leave it at the experience and really don't know what to do with it. And I took it all the way. So I really had to discover why this happened to me. And it took me 10 full years of research and development of myself to understand what happened. I mean, it was like a car accident. It was like a head-on. Oh, sorry. It was like a head-on collision. I was absolutely just completely changed forever. So,
Okay.
look, I'm human. I got a cell phone. I have a wrist guard for my tendonitis. I'm as human as you can get. And I help, by the way, my profession, I've been helping people through upgrading their trauma stories and relieving them of pain and suffering from their addictions, child abuse, child molestation, deep psychosis. I've helped people get off of alcohol, drugs, heavy pharmaceuticals. That's what my husband and I do. We run a healing center. So we're very practical, down to earth people. We have a lot of people in the entertainment industry come through that want private healing sessions with us, because we are not woo-woo at all, actually. So that's why they can come to us, because we do real work. We have a lot of celebrity clients and their children from the most A-list people that you can imagine. And we help them because the addiction centers didn't know what to do with them. Traditional therapy is not working. And we're so private and so discreet. And so how we help people is we help them reprogram their stories and relieve themselves of their heavy trauma. So I've done that for my own children, who are all successful. I've also done that for thousands of people around the world, actually, but people flying from around the world to come see us. So we're very legitimate in our work, and we have thousands of testimonies. You can research. We have a lot of things online. So some people call us shamans. I think that that's a woo-woo term. It's been dragged through the mud. I don't really call myself a shaman because of that. I'm actually, more in the life coach, if it's more safer term. So it's really, I'm an engineer. I just help people to engineer and organize themselves better so they can have a better human experience. So that's really what I do. I don't do chanting. I don't do all the things that add up to woo-woo. The only thing I do is I communicate metaphysically. I communicate to the other side. So does my husband. So I actually get downloads and information all the time. I'm always working in the psychic realms. I spend a lot of time there, and I really have no choice. And so I've just really learned how to work with this tool that was given to me and made the best of it.
Okay. Okay. So you're just leaving me with all these questions. Let's go back to you say that your encounter, I mean, what we look at on Encounters USA is every encounter that we hear about, the first thing we want to do is look and see, has anybody else had that same kind of encounter? So can you just talk, and really what I'm sure the people that are listening now and watching, well, they want to know about the encounter. So let's start off with, I'm laying in bed. I was abducted and I had a surgery done. Now I've watched your video and I've looked a little bit at your book, so I know the answers to these, but how is this the same as other abductions?
Well, there is a type of abduction / surgery experience that's called a multi-dimensional or multi-sensory experience. Now, if you say, well, how can that be? If it's not physical, you leave the ship and leave on a ship and you see somebody disappear in front of your very eyes, like Fire in the Sky with Travis Walton, which I've met. But if you're not actually seeing that, then it doesn't exist, which is really actually hilarious from the point of view of the aliens, because aliens come in and out of materialization all the time. And if you study UFOs, and you know how they operate, they cloak themselves, they come in and out, they dematerialize. So what makes it impossible for a non-material communication, non-material surgery or abduction to occur. So I went and researched and found a lot of people have experienced, more people than you would imagine. As a matter of fact, it might be more common to have non-physical abductions and surgeries happen to more people than material abductions.
Mhm.
And this has not been talked about, and I'll tell you why. Because people are afraid to come forward because of people who get scared, throw rocks, say you're lying, it's not true, if it's not physical evidence, we don't believe it. And so they're afraid to share their story. But the more I've been talking, the more people have been coming forward and saying, this happened to me. Oh my God, I thought I was the only one. How is this possible? I thought I was going crazy. I didn't know this is possible. It's not a dream. And the thing is, some people have it like a dream. Mine wasn't a dream. I was wide awake and my husband was in the bed and watched the whole thing in the sense of watching my convulsions and falling off the bed and things like that. So he actually watched the physical reality of what happened to me. And so I have a witness. But in my room, the room split. It was kind of like split in half, and half the room was white and in another dimension. And it was in a completely different space. It was in a non-physical space. And the other side, if I turn my head to the left, my bed and dresser and my wall and my door. So I was in two worlds.
Okay, Oriah, can I stop you right there?
Absolutely.
Because because what you're talking about here, this is not your alien gray abduction. And I hate to bring up my books on other people's podcasts, but I have a book where I talk about extraterrestrials, and I talk about the fact that they label grays as extraterrestrial biological entities, implying that there are entities that are not biological that they know about. So, and that's why they classified them as that. So, as you are talking, I just want to kind of, for the listeners and viewers, what Oriah is talking about is, you know, I don't want to get into the realm of angels and whatever, but you're talking about entities that are not necessarily biological. Is that correct? So it's not the normal abduction.
Well, yes, and I'd like to expand upon that for a second. So there's two parts to this because they visited me twice. The second part was the actual surgery, which was non-physical. Now, the first visitation, I was in Paris, and there was 5 grays that came into my hotel room and disappeared as soon as I blacked out. Now, whether they were in the room in the physical or not, it remains to be seen as the mind, processes this information. And anybody who's ever witnessed small grays at close range will have the same experience. You cannot prove anything. You could never say they were real or not real unless you literally are holding on to their little cold arms. How else are you going to really know what you are actually seeing? Now, the only thing that was really good for me in my story, for myself even, was that I didn't have any interest in aliens or UFOs prior to my experiences. So I didn't it out or try to research it or know anything about it. So I had no interest in even conjuring or imagining or trying to bring in such experience. And also on my first visitation, I was dead asleep, and I was sleeping, and all of a sudden my eyes just opened like that out of nowhere. And I was paralyzed, and I saw them standing there. And then within seconds, blackout. And the first episode happened where they inhabited my body. My husband had to deal with me in public while this happened. There's a whole story to that. And then when we flew home, came back to our apartment, we lived in Marina del Rey, and I came home, and that next day, they came in and started talking to me about there's going to be a surgery. And then the surgery occurred. And that was the beginning of the end. And I was a different person. Some people say that I was cloned. There's people who believe in that also. And I have been researching this area to understand this as well. I have different theories, but I'm open to theories. So it could be possible.
How can you, because I read some of your, I don't know if I was listening to it or whatever, but you lost your memory for like a couple of years as a child.
Yeah, it was absolutely terrifying on the sense of, well, first of all, we're jumping around, but that's fine. I just would like to tell you, like, when you lose your memory, in this case, because it was a surgery and it was a upgrade, I didn't have a connection to the original me. So the host, I did not have access to my larger scope of my life or all of my detailed memories. I had only the basics. I knew I had children, what they looked like, my relationship with them. I knew who my parents were. I knew who my husband was, my relationship with them. It was very cut and dry, like bullet points. I knew exactly like the basics. Because of this, I didn't have any PTSD around this because I didn't have any connection to the original self to be upset about. Where I did get scared is when I started interacting with my kids, my friends and family, and I couldn't access behavioral traits, my humor, anything that would make me identifiable. So I wasn't able to access my actual personality traits in its entirety. And that startled a part of my psyche that was reserved for keeping this body standing. So something in me said, that doesn't seem right. So there was a conversation between the host to whatever degree, but the primary vibration of myself, my primary self, was this new being who I have now am and have always been for the last 10 years. And my husband and everyone has not only dealt with it, acknowledged it, and has had to readjust their entire lives to be with this new person. So I've heard stories about this happening in a medical field with people who have had comas and woke up speaking different languages or believing they had different lives. I've heard stories of people experiencing, different kinds of aneurysms or different kinds of psychological episodes where they wake up and have these, but I don't have any underlying medical conditions. I don't have any family history, and nothing was unusual or out of the ordinary prior to this happening. So it was just as a surprise for everybody, and nobody knew really what to do about it. My children were the first to make a big stink about it. They're the ones that kept saying, "Where's my mom? And why are you so different? And what happened to you? And when are you coming back? And when's my mommy coming back?" And they were young. They were like 6 was the youngest, and 12, a little bit older, like 13 was the oldest one. So that was the hardest part of the entire thing, because the connection from mother and child is so visceral and so powerful. And there's no denying that in the physical, biological self. And if you have any psychological issues that prevent you from having that natural connection, then that's something else. But most people have a connection, mother and child is very strong. So that was very, I would say in some ways nerve-wracking, in the sense of trying to find my connection to them. So I had little jokes or little pet names or things with each one, and I didn't know any of it. I didn't recall any of that the next day. So it took me 2 weeks to get the courage to see them, because I felt like a bug. I felt like I was an insect. I just was looking at everything like, it was like so extreme. I just didn't know what I was looking at. I was hearing things in technicolor and visually and auditory, and I could hear and feel in so many realms, and I was getting downloads, and I just didn't understand how to acclimate into my environment. But at the same time, there was this higher understanding that this was a part of the process, this was normal, and to take it easy and go slow. And so I stayed isolated for 2 weeks. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't see anyone because I couldn't figure out how to communicate properly. And my husband, being that he's been a psychic his whole life, was born a psychic. And that's another story of like why this happened to me, that I got I attracted this, or it was because I'm his wife. I don't know. But I feel like you have a question for me. I tend to go long. Sorry.
Oh, I have lots of questions.
Okay, go for it. You can jump in and cut me off anytime you want.
Okay. The first question I have, of many questions I have, is, going back to let's just do this, because this is going to be the easiest thing to do. You've talked about your kids are a certain age. So let's talk about the time period. How old are you? What stage of your life you're at? How many kids do you have? And what's the situation there?
Okay. So I always get emotional talking about these things. I've been trying to tell this story without getting emotional. It's almost impossible. I have tried to barrel through and like be strong, but it's really tough because it was It was so cataclysmic. How do you say it? It was just so powerful of an
right. And Oriah, we really just want to know the time frame. How long ago was it? How long did it last?
Yes, so it
And
was in
anything that is
2010. It was in 2010, in the fall of 2010,
Mhm.
and I was 37, and I had just met my husband, and we had been dating for about 9 months. We moved in together in Marina del Rey, California, and we had gone on our first international trip, and we went to Paris. It was the first time I ever went to Paris, and it was kind of like I was moving on from my former divorce, and I was trying to reestablish a new life and just move on. And so that's when it started. It started in Paris, and then when we came back to LA, then it continued.
okay.
And
Oriah,
that's the timeline.
do I have the option to interrupt you? Because I'm not going to,
Absolutely.
but there are some things. Did your relationship with your husband bring this on?
There's times I believe that, but my story goes deeper because of my father. So my father was a UFO enthusiast, which turned me off completely to UFOs. That was part of the reason why I didn't care about it, because I grew up constantly watching him with those VHSs, sitting in a dark room, obsessed. I didn't know what was wrong with him. It was bad enough that I was being bullied in school. So then here I have this weird dad. So I don't know what's going on. And why does my dad move every 6 months? And why did he not go to a normal school? And why does he have weird eyes? The way he stares at everything is like he has, he's autistic or something. I didn't know if he had heavy social anxiety. I didn't know what was wrong with my dad. And he died at 54 years old from complications to lymphoma, cancer. So I didn't understand that what was happening was that there was a possibility, it's very strong, that my dad was in the secret space program. And I say that because his father worked at Lockheed in a very high position at Lockheed International. Then my dad grew up in a behavioral center in the 50s in a military school until he was 16. And that coincides. Every single story I've ever heard of anybody who's been in the secret space program that have done the 20 and back or anything like that, it's the almost exact same behavior, the same persona of somebody who has been in that experience, especially his connection to Lockheed. So, and he was a troubled child, and the parents didn't know what to do with him. So that he was living in military school. I think that this was more of this was a longer timeline than just meeting my husband. I think that this turns out that this was more of a case study on this family, on our family. My grandfather was an inventor and well-known at Lockheed. And I think it just trickled down, and I had no idea. I did have experiences when I was young. At around 5 years old, I was visited, and I recalled all of these memories. Everything has come back to me since, so I do remember. And I also think that it was no accident, by divine intervention or whatever you want to call it, I met my current husband. And being that he was a psychic medium, I didn't really know what that meant fully. All I knew is that people cried a lot when they came to see him for their sessions. And I saw that they left a better person. That's all I knew about the psychic phenomenon. I didn't really know anything else. Honestly, the reason I was really with my husband is because he was tall, dark, and handsome. He swept me off my feet. And I just was really enamored. And I just said, I've worked so hard as being a mom for all these years, and I just want to have fun now. And I want to enjoy my relationship with somebody I really want to be with. And so I kind of went for looks a little bit. And it was just like, I did not date him because he was a psychic. That was the last thing. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know or care really what he was doing, as long as we just hung out and had fun and did things. So people who know me prior know that what I'm saying is absolutely who I was. I was more of happy-go-lucky. I'm a Taurus. I like to play and have fun and mountain hike and just stuff like that. So I'm a very visceral, physical person.
Well, you're welcome to come looking for Bigfoot, Dogman, or aliens anytime you're in Washington.
Okay.
All right. So, Oriah, here's a couple of things. You keep bringing things up, so we're never going to get through this podcast. I just watched a thing on Mark McCandless. Do you know who he is?
I haven't heard of him.
Okay. So he did these things. He did illustrations for Lockheed, and he had a lot of contacts within the industry. And he did this thing about this flux liner it's an alien reproduction vehicle, and that he had all this verification from different people from Lockheed. So,
I
and
would
then here
love to talk to him and go over, see if he
he's
might know my
dead.
grandfather.
They just killed him. They just killed him. He just died of a shotgun wound to the head. So this is nothing I wanted to talk to you about, but think about it. Right when they come out with this, oh, we're going to have all this alien disclosure, right? I saw on the news these jokers talking about it, saying it's all alien technology. It's our technology, and Mark McCandlish proved it. And he had all these people who said, "No, I've seen it in, I've seen these reproduction vehicles in different hangars," and he did all these things. And I'll send you the link to his video. But so there could be a connection here. And my question is, do you have any evidence your father or your grandfather worked for Lockheed?
Well, this is a new development for myself because I've been studying cosmic disclosure and listening to Emery Smith and Jason Rice and listening to their stories. And I'm very familiar with Corey Good. And I have started to put two and two together, and I don't have evidence yet, but I would like to get more evidence. This is a very new development for me. I think I was in denial. I did not want to admit it. I didn't want to put the two and two together, but I talked it over with my husband. We went over all the specific details that I know about my father and my grandfather. And it lines up exact in every way. And so then there's no accident why they came and found me. And then they've also visited my children. My children have had interactions with aliens. So this is a family connection. This is definitely, and it's not in the negative. At first it seems that way. And it took me a while to understand that. This is more of an upgraded kind of benevolent encounter. It has to do with the fact that I think that I didn't know this was going to happen, but I'm not opposed to speaking. And maybe that's why they chose me or my family, because they knew I was going to speak about it and I was going to tell my story. Some people, they have these encounters, but they don't say anything. So, but some people do. And I'm one of those people, and I have plans on continuing to do so. So, and I have a lot of downloads and information that I've received over the last decade that they have given me.
Okay. So let's go over, and as much as you want to, let's go over the abduction and what I'm looking for, because it's obviously not your normal abduction. Your spine was basically replaced, right? Do you want to talk about that?
Yes. Okay.
So tell us whatever you want to tell us about what happened.
Okay, I'd like to kind of set it up a little bit prior, because I need you to understand the actual layout of the room and the layout of what happened, because everything kind of works together. So it was around 3:15, and I was in the kitchen walking into the hallway, and I heard a voice in my head. My husband was on the couch in the living room, and the voice I heard was a similar voice to the one in Paris. And the voice, in a very calm way, very not sounding human or like someone I know, it said, you will be receiving a surgery at 7:30. Go in your room and lay down. And I thought, wow, that's the weirdest thing you could ever think about or hear in your head. And I don't normally have voices in my head. So I said, okay, this is weird. I told my husband about it. I got a voice. They said to lay down at 7:30. I have absolutely no plans on doing that. I'm probably going to run out the door. I do not want to lay down at 7:30. But guess what? As it was getting close to 7:30, my entire being started to go into this kind of like quietude. And I started finding myself gravitating towards the bed, kind of outside of my control, like it was going to happen no matter what. So I laid down on the right side of the bed, just like the cover of my book. I found a girl that looked just like me at that time, and on that right side, and I just laid there. And my husband came in later, and I think they called him in because he came in at the right time. He wasn't there at first. And so when I first laid down, I just closed my eyes and I had my hands to the side of my head. And all of a sudden, like the first time, my eyes just opened like this. And I was looking straight at the ceiling, and I saw this giant head. And the head was the size of, like, from a ceiling to the floor. Like, that is a big distance. I don't know what that is, like 10 feet or something. I don't know. Like, it's just a really giant head, 10 feet long and about probably close to 6 or 7 feet wide. It was just massive. And it looked like a gray. So it had the alien face, the gray with the big eyes, and it had the little mouth, little nose, typical, except the only thing that was different about this face is it had 1,000 tiny little cracks, and it looked like it was an ancient. The feeling I got was like it was I called him the wise one, because it felt like this, like if aliens could have medicine men, it was like this old, like very wise being. And the feeling I got that came over me, I get chills every time I talk about it, but the feeling I got was, he's here now, it's all going to be okay, and this is not really up to you. And at the same time, this is for your highest good, and you are going to be awake for it. But like, it was kind of a prep. It was like a download I got immediately. And in that moment, I saw that face disappeared. And I saw this tall alien, probably around 10, maybe 10 or 11 feet tall, standing kind of about 150 feet from me, ahead of me like this. I'm laying on the bed and I could see it in this all of a sudden white room. This is all happening very fast. This alien is standing there, big head, skinny body, long arms, long fingers. And there was a man standing next to him, around 6 foot tall, dark hair. It was like kind of dressed casual, almost like if he was probably sleeping and somebody just took him out of the bed. He just looked bewildered. And I saw this man facing the alien facing the man. So I see this and I have no idea, A, why I'm seeing this, and B, how does this have anything to do with me? And all of a sudden there was a tray in the alien's hands, and there was like a medical tray. And in the medical tray was like a little medical bowl. It was all silver. And inside, it was like an open bowl. And inside that open bowl, there was something in it. And the guy was not looking at me. The human wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the bowl. And the telepathic communication I got was that there was something in that bowl for me to look at. And everything in my being knew that that was going to be not good. I did not want to see what was in that bowl. I thought something was going to happen to me next. Like there was something immediately in my primal nature that just jumped in, and I started to get scared. And within half a millisecond, I'm zoomed in now, and I'm up close, and they show me what's in the bowl. And in the bowl was this amber gelatin that seemed very alive. And it had all these like little glowing lights and molecules, or not molecules, but like little specks of things. Like it was like this like really gelatinous kind of amber. And inside of that was an eye, a human eye. And it was not just an eyeball. It was the entire, like if somebody, what is this called? I forget, orbital bone, the bone of the eye.
Cornea,
it was,
yeah.
Yeah, it was like somebody had done a perfect circle and cut this whole section out, and it was in the bowl, and the eyeball was moving like this. And immediately I got the download that this gelatin keeps organisms alive. So this is an intelligent life form, the gel, and it was keeping this organ alive. So there's nothing wrong with the organ. The organ is alive, and they couldn't, I thought back later, they couldn't use any other organ. They had to use the eye because the eye is moving, so it could show me that it was alive. That was brilliant of them. I put 2 and 2 together way later that's why they chose that organ. So then the man turns and faces me, and he has this hole in his face, a black hole that the eye came from. Now, I'm not a sci-fi person. I wasn't a sci-fi person. I don't seek out visuals like this, and I'm not trying to look at things like this. This is not my style. I'm into cute things. Like I'm not into gross things like this. So I'm not imagining on my own this is happening. This is like an actual like fearful moment. I got extremely scared that something was going to happen to me next. I didn't know why they were showing that to me. And within seconds of that, I felt everything move and adjust to kind of the back of my head. Like the room, everything moved, and there was no space. There was nothing, like I couldn't see any like tables or beds or anything. So I couldn't tell if something was like north, east, west, or south. It was just a big round room of light. It was just no walls. Like it was just massive. And then if I could, and I couldn't because I was paralyzed, but if I could look to the left, I was still in my room and I could feel the bed underneath me. So this was a supernatural experience that was happening. Immediately I knew this was for real because my eyes were blinking. I was aware of my husband in the other room. I was aware of my bed. I could feel everything. I was checking in immediately to see if I was still here, and I was. Then the next thing that happened was the scariest. I don't know. I think this might be the scariest moment of the entire episode. There was this vat. It was this giant vat. It probably can hold about 200 gallons of liquid. and it was about probably 8 feet tall, and it was about 4 or 5 feet wide, and it was round, and it was inside. I got this bird's eye view. They kind of moved me like this, and I could see it was filled with that gelatin. And the second I saw that, your mind immediately processes very quickly, that's not a small bowl, this is a vat, which means my whole body is probably going to go in here. Like, why are they showing that to me? So I immediately tried to somehow back out of my experience internally. Like, I was trying to find a back door, trying to find an exit route, trying to find, it's like an animal just about ready to be captured in a cage. And I started panicking, and I felt like they had inverted me. So now I'm like this, and I started going into the vat, and I could feel the actual liquid. I could feel the gelatin. It was like a room temperature coolness to it. And I could feel it hitting this part of my face first. And they were sticking my face. It went in my nose. It started going in my mouth. I was trying to block my mouth. I felt it going in my eyes, it going in my ears, as my head. And as it started to go into my nose, my nostrils up in here, I was 100% sure I was going to die. I mean, you're not going to make it from that, make it through that. First of all, why am I feeling it? Second of all, I can't breathe the gelatin. I'm going to suffocate. So my eyes started rolling to the back of my head. And at that moment, I noticed my husband somehow had come in the room and laid down, but he was very still. And it was kind of not the normal husband feeling. Like, he wasn't like, hey, what's going on? It was like very still. He laid next to me, and with this voice, which I think they were talking through him, they said, we are benevolent. This is for your highest good. It will be okay. Just relax. That kind of communication, just calm. And he said it like 2 or 3 times. I didn't care what he was saying. At this point, my husband is now under the influence. Now they got to him. He's paralyzed. Now I'm paralyzed. I'm going to die right now. I don't care what's going on. This has to stop. And I had no control of stopping it. And that moment, I felt death imminent. And I felt my eyes rolling to the back of my head. I started gurgling, choking, gasping for air. I was making all kinds of crazy noises out loud. I could hear myself. And then I started convulsing. And it was like a stage when the mind, I think what it is like when the mind shuts off, or the mind goes into a recessed place where, like an animal who's being maybe given a surgery while it's still awake. There's this primal removal of your consciousness from what's happening in the room, what's happening in that moment. So I went into an altered state at that moment. I got completely immersed into the vat. I was blacked out. And what I didn't know, but I felt, was my body was convulsing like a fish on a boat. It was just like flopping like this. And I almost completely fell off the bed. I was hanging kind of off the bed. And at that point, there was a moment when somehow they were able to give me a vantage point. I don't know if it was I don't know how they did it, but I was able to kind of get a glimpse and see what was behind me and what they were doing. And I felt this weird, wet sensation. It was coming from the back of my skull. And I felt something. I didn't have any pain. I didn't have any sensation. All I felt was like something was being pulled, it was a weird feeling. And I looked up and I saw, it was so fast. They pulled out, this is something I can't even make up. Trust me, I'm not this talented in sci-fi. So they pulled out my spinal cord, and I know how that sounds, so bear with me. And they replaced it instantly with this very long blue, bright blue, all I could reference it is like Tron. It looked like very biomechanical. It was glowing in the middle, and it had these little mechanisms. It was like an actual biomechanical cord or tube. And instantly, and I could feel the wise one, the older alien, and I felt it being put back into my head, into the back of my skull right here, into my spine. And in that moment, everything just went out, and I slept until 3:45 the next day in the afternoon. And I'm somebody who gets up early, I get up at 6 to 7:30 a.m. every morning. I'm bright at, I get out there and, I do stuff. I drink my coffee, and I'm not a person who sleeps till that time unless I have the flu. I had no flu. There was no fever. I didn't have any psychotic episode. There was no aneurysm. There was no stroke. I didn't have any physical head pain. My eyes were not bloodshot. I didn't have any strange things happening to my face or my blood pressure. I felt completely normal. I woke up at 3:45. I felt healthy and normal, but I felt not me. I was 100% not me. And I laid in bed for 5 minutes or more. I don't know how long I laid there, looking around the room like this with my eyes, trying to figure out and assess as many things as I could. I was trying to assess why I didn't feel like me. Why can't I get out of the bed? Why am I looking at the room like this? I've always seen this room. Why am I sitting here staring at the room like this? This is weird. How come I don't feel any pain? Something happened to me last night. And then I remembered. And then I said, that's impossible, because how can the conscious mind make sense of that? So I then found it in me to get up from the bed, and then my movements were strange. So my gait, how I was walking into the living room, was like the first time I was using feet. I felt like a pterodactyl or something, like this weird thing. And I started walking in, and I was like looking at everything like I didn't understand what I was looking at. And I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel anything was wrong, because I didn't have any reference to anything was bad or wrong. So it was just very neutral, but something told me that this is very unusual. Like, I knew something in my psyche that was still intact, knew that I went through a very massive experience. So I get to the living room. My husband looks at me, and he looked scared. He was totally dressed for the day, which normally he doesn't get dressed until later. So I didn't know what time it was. And I asked him what time, and he told me, and he was scared in his face, like, why did I sleep till 3:45? He couldn't wake me. What was wrong? And he didn't even want to really talk to me or anything. He was like, let's just get out of the house. Let's just get out of the house. Let's just go get ice cream or something, because we live by the beach. Let's just walk to the beach. I can keep going, but if you want to ask me any more questions, that was the surgery. The aftermath is where it was huge. Information came in after that.
All right. So first of all, have you ever seen Galaxy Quest?
Maybe a long time ago. I don't remember it.
Well, there's a part in it where these guys, they transport to this alien ship. They don't believe they're doing anything. And one of the guys that transports, he gets transported. He opens his eyes. He just starts screaming. I'm screaming inside right now. And for anybody who said, why are you having her on this show? Well, that's why she's on the show. Couple of things. Going back to your prep, you were in Paris and you had some aliens come. And so what I'm doing here, Oriah, is I'm comparing what I've heard from other people with your experience. So they came and they visited you, and, talking about this Mark McCandlish guy, he talks about people that have had alien abductions, and what they do is they put an implant in your head, and then then they can communicate with you, right? So I would suggest to you at some point, if you haven't thought of this already, get an MRI, go see a hypnosis or a hypnotist. Have you done that? Any of that?
I found one finally. I've been searching and searching.
Okay, well, I don't want to hear anything about it yet. I still have questions for you. So let's see. They said he's here, and then he was the old alien. What's so special about him? Hugh Hines here. Just want to remind you, if you like this kind of content, subscribe to this channel, whether you're listening on podcast or watching on YouTube. Also, go to encountersusa.com for more videos and podcasts, all archived for your convenience. Also, we have a wonderful Encounters USA blog, as well as an Encounters USA paranormal shop for all of your paranormal apparel. So, not only can you watch your back, you can put some of our designs on yours as well. So we'll see you on down the road on Encounters USA.